Hey everybody, Alex Kazor, SteelersDepot.com back for another Pittsburgh Steelers recap, and this one's going to be a brutal one. You probably already figured that out as the Pittsburgh Steelers upset by the two-win, now three-win Cincinnati Bengals 27 to 17. A lot to talk about today, very little of it positive, so let's jump right into the recap. Plain and simple, this was one of the worst games of Ben's career in the first half. Was certainly, I think, maybe his worst half of football ever. I mean, that's a long history. I'm sure there's some stuff we could debate and argue and try to reminisce about, unfortunately so. But Ben was just brutal in the first half, and there's no getting around that. You can blame anything else you want, and there are other elements to blame, but Ben was just terrible from the word go. Literally, the first pass of the game, roll out to the right, underthrow James Washington, what should have been a touchdown or a really long gain turns into a near interception and did not get better throughout the game, whether you're talking ball placement, just overall accuracy, decision making, just making a terrible throw that gets picked off by the linebacker and just a litany of bad decisions and poor play overall. He was in negative yards until about 5 minutes left in the first half. Finished the half with 19, and things did get better in the second half. But again, that was a very low bar, and against a pretty brutal Bengals team. That defense was not good. Obviously, really ugly. 170 total yards on I think 38 attempts, and just one of the worst games of his career. And is it injury? Is it something else? It's hard to say for sure, but I think again, just a limited menu of things to work. You had the couple, at the end of the win streak, 11 game win streak. You had a couple of those games where you're throwing 40 plus times and you're wondering, can you really sustain an offense like that? And it's obvious to say, especially coming off of this game, but Ben is no longer at a point in his career where he can be really the sole provider of the offense and where, he's the only guy that works and he can make it work the way Deshaun Watson potentially could or Mahomes or Russell Wilson or someone like that. So just the overall menu of things that were working was not sustainable. The run game was better tonight, so at least we give them credit for that. I mean, the Bengals do not have a good rushing attack or rushing defense, but the run game was better, so they weren't entirely one dimensional, but they were terrible on third and one. They were 0 for 3 on third and one. And Mike Tomlin had said a few weeks ago, if you can't, get a yard, you don't deserve to win the game, and that's been a story too often. One of the worst, third and short, fourth and short teams in football. I'll have the stat for that later in the week. But Ben was brutal. No, getting around that. And when your quarterback is as bad as he is, I don't care what team you're playing, it's really hard to win. Now that doesn't absolve the other issues for the offense. The offensive line was not good enough in pass pro tonight. Alejandro Villanueva had probably his worst game of the season, maybe one of the worst of his career. Carl Lawson's a really good defensive end, a guy that is better than what the stats indicate. But Villanueva struggled. Same with a core four. There was a rotation at left guard between J.C. Hassenauer, Duran Gray. Sure felt like this team was better with Duran Gray at left guard, yet they continued to rotate. Not my favorite thing in the world clearly, but that was the Steelers' game plan. But yeah, just overall possession downs 4-16 on third down. Just look at situational football. The last 3 week or really 4 games, including the Ravens game, the three losses and then the narrow win over the depleted Ravens. They're about, I think it's about 25% on third down. They've not converted on fourth down. I think they're over three. Their red zone percentage is around 40%, and they are, I think, -3 in turnover differential. So they are just a really bad situational football team right now. And while the defense was the better of the two units, they certainly had their own issues as well. The second half, a couple of those long drives, back-breaking drives, and this is just a defense that does not defend option football well. Ryan Finley proved throughout the game they were capable of running, zone read type stuff, and the Steelers never really had a good answer until very late in the game when they were rolling down Micah Fitzpatrick and really, kind of selling out versus the run. But Alex Highsmith certainly got suckered inside on the Finley 23-yard key for a touchdown that really kind of halted any momentum Pittsburgh was building for that second half comeback. And just to say the sentence out loud of hopefully you can come back to tie the Bengals in the second half is a very depressing sentence to say. So yeah, just not a good option team or option defense in general. And just they struggle to adjust to quarterbacks that they haven't seen a lot of tape on or guys who kind of get started at least announced to be the starter later in the week. Whether you're talking Jeff Driscoll coming in early in the Broncos game when Drew Lock got hurt, whether you're talking Garrett Gilbert of the Cowboys, who was announced late in that week about being named the starter. Same with Ryan Finley in the Bengals game on Monday night. And that is a direct criticism of the coaching staff. I'm not using that as an excuse of, oh, it's okay. They don't have to game plan for these guys, but they just struggle to deal with these quarterbacks where they don't know a whole lot about them. Now, Finley was not, set the world on fire tonight due for 89 yards, but, he was pretty good. He was better than he's been in any game all season. And probably his two best, performances have come against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's disappointing. And he made some plays with his legs, and Pittsburgh was not prepared for that. So overall, obviously a lot of emotions for this game. This was supposed to be your get right game where, yeah, you thought you were going to beat the Bengals and it was only the Bengals, but at least it was a victory. You lock up the North and, you check that box. And now this team's not going to get the 1 seed. They're the number 3 seed currently, I believe, behind Buffalo, who's sitting in the 2 spot right now. And now you're wondering, will this team win the North? And they got two tough games coming up here. The Colts on Sunday, and then the rematch against the Browns, and that could be for the AFC North title. And so the Pittsburgh Steelers are fading fast at the wrong time, while teams like the Browns and Bills, etc., are ascending, and that is a bad recipe heading in the playoff season. So it's just hard to be super optimistic about them figuring stuff out and getting things right when it's been wrong for this long, and now it's been wrong against some teams who have really struggled this year, like the Bengals, teams you should have beat, and you just can't even really look competent against them, which is obviously disappointing. So a lot to recap for this week. I wish it was positive for this Christmas week, but fortunately, it's coal in your stocking. I guess is the way this week's gonna go. So it'll be fun to read your comments and frustration, and I'm sure you have a lot to say in the comments below. So let me know your thoughts there, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening.